In 2013, I coined the name Grampion, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Hey folks, welcome to the very first, the launch program for the Grampion. We've done this a couple of times, and so due to some technical difficulties, we're back with you. But it's pretty audacious that someone would come on a podcast and call themselves the Grampion. But actually, I did not name me the Grampion. I don't take credit for it. I also don't take blame for it. But the guy who did is with me here in studio today. May I present the one, the only, the amazing Wes Tracy. Welcome, Wes, to the Grampion podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
So, the story, do we want to hear the story of the Grampion? Should we tell everybody?
I think they should probably know it wasn't all me, man.
Yeah, so it was out at Panther Lake, what was it, 10 years ago, I think now.
2013, right?
Yeah, 2013, 10 years ago, yeah. Yeah, 2013, yeah. So we were out at Panther Lake, and we were playing a game, and you had won again, obviously, because why would you? Yeah. So we were playing a game. You had won, and you were saying, "Oh, now I'm the champion," and I was like, "Well, you're a grandpa. You can't be champion because you're a grandpa. So if you want to be a if you want to be a champion, you got to be a grandpa and a champion." So the Grampion.
The Grampion was born. There's a little bit of conflict about what actually happened. Some people say you're not a grandpa, you're not a champion, you're a Grampion. And some people say you're a grandpa and a champion. But, I think that story has to die because it's really irrelevant now.
I think it's you're a champion at being a grandpa.
All right. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. So the reason I wanted you here is, number one, to clear up any confusion about someone being so arrogant as to name themselves a Grampion, but also that was really the genesis. But in this podcast, I interview champions. And as I look at you, I see someone who's 17 years old, who spent a full summer up on a mountain cowboying on the back of a horse, who is learning how to fly and flies an airplane at 17. And I see someone who is a professional hunting guide. And I think that if I look at all those things, I've never known anybody before who did all three of those, or did any two of those things, or even really did one of those things. And yet you've assembled this incredible young adulthood where you're rocking it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of the people around me and putting blessings and different opportunities in front of me. So,
but you got to grab them.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go back a year ago. You spent an entire summer, when school got out, the end of May, all the way through September.
So I was actually down here in Boise, working at a coffee shop and doing school at the same time.
Homeschool,
yeah. So homeschool, and then I would work at a coffee shop in the afternoons, right. And then after that year was up, it was the summertime. I went back to my house, to my place over in Washington, and my dad was like, "Well, we need an extra hand. We need somebody to go ride horses 8 hours a day, 5 days a week up on, we call it the mountain. It's just north of Kettle Falls. So.
Yeah. So up near the Canadian border.
Yeah. I mean, where our base camp is 10 miles south of the Canadian border. So. And
it's seriously in the middle of the mountains.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the closest town is from the cabin that we were at, it's 4.5 miles away, which doesn't sound like that much until you realize I think the population is less than 100 people in that town. Yeah. And then the closest town from there would be Kettle, which is a 30 to 40 minute drive. So,
and I think people would find it fascinating to think about, at that time, a 16-year-old who rode horses for 8 hours a day, and it was really more than 5 days a week. It was more like 6.5 days a week.
Yeah, so
no electricity.
Yep.
No indoor plumbing.
Nope. No.
Cell phone works rarely.
It was only when we were in town, pretty much. So once a week when we were down in the big town, which was still, I mean, Kettle and Colville aren't huge. So.
And you're riding the range, which happens to be mountains, tending cattle, and that's mamas and babies.
Yep. Yeah.
In an area of the country that has things like wolves and bears. And
So me and the cowboy that I was up there with, his name's Jack. We would usually get up. We'd try to beat the heat because that was the worst part of it. It gets hot up there. So we would get up around 4:00 in the morning, and we'd be riding 4:30, 5:00, and then we'd ride 8 hours from there. So we'd be riding until 1, 2 in the afternoon. We'd saddle a horse. Sometimes we would take a trailer up, so we'd put the horses in the trailer. And these are all young horses, by the way. They're what we call them colts. So they had just been trained to be able to have somebody on them the year before. So taking these young horses up there and putting just tons of miles on these horses, and then riding through cattle and just getting that experience and then tending to the cattle.
You were riding the range, man. Should have been the 1800s, 1900s, whatever, right?
Yeah, it was a good time. So,
but you were not born in the wrong era at all. And the reason I say that is that since you were just a little kid, and you're way taller and more handsome than me now, but when you were a little kid, you flew into Saratoga with me, and you looked over at me and you said, drop a little more altitude. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think 4-year-olds are supposed to use those big words.
Yeah, that's a funny story because to be able to get in that, so I was, I think, 2 years old, and you had told me you had just gotten your plane just a year or so before that.
Yeah.
And you had told me, if you want to ride in the Saratoga, you got to be potty trained.
Yeah.
And I was 2 years old, and 3 days later, I got my booster seat, put it in the plane, and off we went.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool. But did that experience, did that make you think, whoa, this is pretty cool? I might want to take this up as a career.
Oh yeah, definitely. So right now, actually, I'm going through probably about halfway through pilot training. Mm-hmm. So flying a 172, and I've flown 2 different planes, but mostly doing training in a 172. Uh-huh. And I've got about 7 hours now in the pilot seat.
Yeah.
And then I've
pilot in command.
Yeah, pilot PIC. Yeah, and just finished ground school a couple weeks ago. So.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. But you've also flown a Saratoga, and you've flown a jet. And
yeah.
You've done some pretty cool stuff, haven't you?
The SR-20. So.
SR-20, yes, Cirrus.
Yep, yeah. Cirrus.
And your flight instructor thinks you're pretty cool.
Yeah, my flight instructor is pretty cool too. So.
Well, you know what they say about pilots? They're all pretty cool, and it never wears off.
Yeah.
Nobody can make you not a pilot once you're a pilot.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got the cowboy experience, and then you've got the aviation experience. What do you want to do with aviation over the long term? What part of this champion part of your life, being a pilot at 17, is fascinating enough where you want to take it to the next level? What is that next level?
So the biggest thing is I definitely want to do some mission work. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like or where it'll be, but that sounds like definitely a direction I would want to head towards. And but most of it, even through missionary, I want to fly bush planes. So, a mall would be pretty sweet to fly. But
what led to this fascination with bush flying?
So, well, when I was little, when I first started seeing planes and stuff, you took me to an air show, and I saw F-16s, and I was in love. I was like, there's nothing I want to do more than grow up and fly F-16s. Yeah. And then as I grew up, I realized that it doesn't just go to jets too. Like there's all sorts of other planes out there, and I've seen different stall competitions and stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. And I've talked to
Stole is not stall.
Stall. Okay, stall. Okay, stall. Yeah. So
stall in aviation is really
that's
bad.
Yeah.
But a short takeoff and landing.
Yeah.
So people want to understand
stall,
that you're talking about. I want to do short takeoffs and landings.
Yeah. STOL. Stall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Is he self-taught? Self-taught. So, and bad grammar, homeschooling, right? So definitely, I don't know if I want to be based out of Alaska, but I love hunting and stuff hunting and fishing, and so I definitely want to, as a senior trip or something, go up to Alaska and experience that. And really when I started going into like I want to fly bush planes was I got to fly in a aqua amphibious Beaver, and we were doing a hiking trip off Lake Chelan. We flew from Chelan down to Stehekin in a Beaver, and I mean a Beaver. I mean it's kind of a bush plane type thing, but I mean that just backcountry flying was like I loved it.
All right, Beaver, Otter, doesn't matter. Put some floats on it, and it's Wes in the chair, left chair, baby.
Oh yeah. So
okay, so you mentioned hunting, and when you talk about hunting. I'm thinking like Wes, when he is a kid, he's like a pretty good hunter. I mean, he's like way above average. But you didn't really have that burning desire, love that I saw like in some of your brothers, but all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And I get this call out of the blue and it says, hi, your grandson, Wes, he is a professional hunting guide at 17 years old. He's taking corporate clients pheasant hunting at a ranch in Eastern Washington. Who in the world gets to do that at 17?
Yeah, it's a blast. So, I mean, like, I had always hunted with my brothers and my dad, and we would deer hunt down in Dayton, so up in the Blues.
Yeah.
And I love deer hunting, but I mean, I still love deer hunting, but it wasn't really. I didn't start like super loving hunting until we went to Hecla.
So we got to tell people what Hecla is, but before we do that, we're going to give a shout out to Grandparents Academy. Do you know that we have a sponsor here?
I did not know that.
Yeah, we've got a sponsor of our very first podcast.
That's awesome.
Grandparents Academy, and we just appreciate them helping grandparents be better grandparents. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, here's some of the tools that equip you to be. Well, hey, they could even be a Grampion if they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So be a grandpa, be a grandma, and be a Grampion at Grandpa's or Grandparents Academy. All right.
That's awesome.
So when we talk about Hecla, we're talking about a place that is up in the northeast corner of South Dakota. It's a little town. There's not very many people that live there either. And in our family since 1950, there's been this little chunk of dirt that other people would just glance at and they'd go, big deal. But it's on the edge of a national waterfowl refuge or national wildlife refuge. And we've done some duck hunting, and we've done some goose hunting, and we've done some
pheasant hunting.
The wily roosters, the Chinese ringneck pheasant.
Oh, yeah.
South Dakota state bird. And it's on a lot of people's bucket list to go do some of the things that you've already done there.
Yeah. I mean, we would go, just hunting pheasants up in Hecla. We would get up in the morning, we'd go we'd hunt for pheasants in the morning, and then we'd go out and lay in some duck blinds or sit in a pit waiting for geese. Yeah. And then we'd go back out in the evening and kill some more pheasants. So.
Yeah. Early ducks, then pheasants, then geese, then pheasants.
Yep.
Does that work for you?
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty good day.
Oh, yeah. That's a pretty good day. So, and now I work at Miller Ranch right outside of Sprague. So between Spokane and Moses Lake, pretty much.
So because this is an international podcast, we ought to tell them that Sprague is in Washington State,
it's
United States of America.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we're in America.
This is like the whole World Wide Web, baby.
Yeah.
Man, we got to tell everybody what we're talking about geographically.
All right. So it's a little town in Washington, right south of Spokane. So
yeah. And so when you talk about Miller Ranch, is this a ranch?
Yeah, well, so they call it a ranch because a lot of people when they're talking about a ranch, it's not always cattle. It's not. A lot of times you'll have like a goat ranch or a sheep ranch, which my dad wouldn't like that. He'd call them goat farmers or sheep farmers. But
I think they call them shepherds, buddy.
Yeah. So truthfully though, it's not a cattle ranch. They ranch pheasants, and they call it Miller Ranch is because they used to be cattle ranchers. Yeah. And then they transitioned over to
another beautiful example of a family business surviving in America over the long term.
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right on. So anyway, you somehow went to them and they said, "Hey, you're 16 years old at that time?
Yeah, 16, yeah.
And you should be a professional guide.
Yeah, so what happened is I called them up. I figured out they were needing some help. And
who doesn't these days, right?
Yeah, seriously. So I called them and I said, "Hey, man, I'm looking for a job. I'm young, and I love hunting. I've hunted my whole life, and I can work in the shop, all sorts of stuff. Because it's not always hunting, right? We've got 4-wheelers, ATVs, and then they farm during the summer months. So there's a lot of mechanicking to be done too.
All right. So you're good at turning wrenches.
Yeah. I wouldn't say good, but I can do it definitely.
Okay. Wait a minute now. So I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt. 2 nights ago, you were up until like 3 a.m. working with your dad, and you dropped a rebuilt motor into an 86 Toyota pickup that's yours. Is that correct?
Yep. So I bought an 86 Toyota pickup. And then we
How many 17-year-olds do you know that turned wrenches on an engine and then dropped it overnight? And did it start?
Yeah, so it's not done yet. We dropped it. We got the transmission and engine rebuilt, put them in, got everything hooked up, and then did a lot of praying before we turned the key. And then we started it up. And I mean, it fired right up, and we got definitely a lot of tuning and stuff to do. But we were up all night. I mean, we had started about noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we worked all the way until about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. We got it started, and we got started 10 minutes before I left to the airport to come here.
So you got it started, then you came here.
Yep.
Well, that's a Grampion move, all on your own. That's a champion move from a Grampion. Grandpa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted regarding
Miller Ranch. Yeah.
Miller Ranch,
yeah.
a family business. Now they ranch pheasants, and they do this little duck and goose hunting and some other stuff like that, trap shooting. But it's really an outdoorsman place, isn't it?
Yeah. So I had called them about getting the job. They said, "Hey, why don't you come out for a day? We'll see if we like you. We'll see what you can do, handling dogs, stuff like that." So I come out.
Wait a minute. Handling dogs?
Yeah, so...
Now, a lot of people know me as a dog handler, so you just completely got my attention.
Okay, so yeah. So they've got a bunch of different... So they do trap shooting, and then they do...
Trap shooting. Now, what is that?
Trap shooting...
A lot of people aren't going to know. I mean, we know this inherently because we've been doing it since Shep was a pup, but...
Okay, so trap shooting is where you've got little orange... They're like little Frisbees, but they're about the size of my palm.
Yeah, clay pigeon.
Yeah, clay pigeon is what they call it. And so they're made of clay. They go in this, they call it a launcher. Mm-hmm. You load them up in there, and it has an arm on it that flings them out into the air.
Flings them flying up in the air.
So it flings them, and it's pretty much mimicking bird hunting. So it's going to fling a clay pigeon out there, and then there's a line of guys with shotguns, and one of them will stand there. He'll say pull. Whoever's holding the remote flings one out there, and then they try to shoot it. So.
And this is a legitimately cool sport, is it not?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so if they want to look up Trapper Skeet on YouTube, man, that'd be a great place for you to learn about the outdoor relationship between hunters and sportsmen and firearms. Yeah. Safe firearms.
Safe firearms. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I keep interrupting you, man.
No, you're okay.
So you're out. You interview over the phone and say, "Hey, I've done some stuff." Yeah. You're 16. I mean, let's face it. You're 16, and I've done some stuff, and they're like, sure, come on out," and then you fill in the blank.
Yeah. So I come out. I showed them. We worked in the shop a little bit my first day. Actually, we pulled a transmission on an F-350. So
well, Ford, that figures. You got to fix it, man. And fix and repair daily.
I think working at that place, that Ford's been up on the lift more than it has been off the lift. So.
Yeah, that's what most Fords are like. I'm not going to get a Ford sponsorship. I can promise you that.
All right, so so I come out. We did a little bit with wrenches. We did a little bit of hunting, and while we were hunting, they've got 20 dogs that they go hunting with. Mm-hmm. So most of it's pheasant hunting and chucker is what they do hunting wise. And with the dogs, we'll go out there and we'll spread all the guys out in a line, and we'll hunt down. We have 2 different dogs that we use. So one of them is going to be a pointer.
2 different types of
Yeah,
dogs.
so 2 different. Yeah, there are 2 different breeds, and then they have 2 different jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, so we use a German Shorthair is the breed, and we use them for pointing.
So what is pointing? That means they're like,
yeah. So
I got this bird.
Yeah, so these birds are going to be out in the field, and the pointer works in front of us, and when he smells a bird, he'll get down low, and then when he sees it or when he knows there's a bird there, he'll get really still and almost lay down on the ground, and then his tail will point straight in the air. And so we call that a solid point. And then we have.
So he's sending you a message.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I got the bird and it's right in front of me.
It's pretty much him going, whoa, hey, there's a bird right here, guys.
All right.
And so the other dog that we use, it's usually a lab. We got a lot of black labs that we use.
Right on.
And we'll
forgive that. I like yellow labs, but I'll forgive a black lab.
Yeah, so we do have a couple yellow labs too, but
good ones.
Yeah, so they're we call them the hunters, even though they're both hunting dogs.
They're flushers.
Yeah, hunters and flushers. So
Yeah.
the flushers have 2 different jobs. They're gonna be working right in front of you, and they'll go along the whole line of guys, and they're trying to bust any birds right in front of you.
Like scare them up?
Yeah, scare them up so that way we can shoot them. And then when the pointer goes on point, I'll call that dog back to me, and I'll call the flusher back to me, so that lab, and then we'll get all the guys set up where we want them around the bird,
so they can safely have a shot.
Yeah, so
at
that
this
way we're
bird.
not busting a bird and people getting confused, and we don't want anybody hurt.
Yeah.
So we'll get everybody set up, and I'll let everybody know, hey, there's a bird right here, guys. Let's get around it, and it's not a circle that we're using. It's more of like a V shape.
Yeah. So let me paint a picture for the folks. You get all these guys, and these are corporate customers who are coming out, and they're trying to do team building. And you, as a 17-year-old, are saying, come on, guys, let's be in here. Let's be safe. I'll show you how the dogs work. And then you get to watch these marvelous dogs do their job.
Oh, yeah.
And then the bird gets up, and what happens?
So then, a lot of these guys, I don't want to be hurting on them or anything like that, but most of them haven't handled guns that much, so it's a lot of shooting once the bird gets up.
Yeah.
But there's usually 1 or 2 guys in there that they're pretty accurate and they can get the bird down. So.
All right. So then you're harvesting organic protein.
Yep. Yeah. So then we'll take all those birds back, and then we've got a big, huge cleaning room, and we'll cut them up and process them, and then put them in vacuum bags, and they get to take them home and eat them.
All right.
So.
Sweet. Gus, I'm sorry, Wes. Gus is his older brother. Wes, you've already, across 17 years, done more stuff at a champion level, really. There's a lot of people who've sat in an airplane, but there's not many people who have been singularly in control of an aircraft. And for the safety of the passenger, even if your passenger is a flight instructor or a grandpa, but who've been singularly responsible for the safety of your passengers. You have been cowboying by yourself, no electricity, no plumbing, no television, certainly, no internet.
Yep.
And communications, you had to go, like, if bad stuff happens, you have to go get communications rather than just like punch your cell phone.
Yeah.
And riding a horse, you've been like riding a horse in steep mountain country.
Yep.
Gathering cows, making sure cows aren't in trouble, making sure the wolves are not like having lunch at your place.
Yep.
Making sure the bears aren't scaring cows down the mountain. Yep. That's an epic level of cool for someone who's 50.
Thank you.
Okay, but you're not 50 yet.
Yeah.
You're so as I look at that and I look at what you've done, pilot, hunting guide, cowboy. What's next on your radar? What do you see in the future? When you're 18, how in the world are you going to top this?
So definitely going to keep flying. That's my dream. I want to do that, and I guess there's going to be a lot of figuring it out and doing a lot of the same cool stuff. So this next hunting season, starting this September, we're going to go back in and do some more hunting. I'll be hunting this season, and hopefully I'll have my pilot's license here pretty quick. And then just mostly there, making money so that way I can purchase my first aircraft.
Yeah.
To finish out flight school. Cause
you got to support your habit.
So,
now, who paid for your flight school?
Myself so far.
Because people are going to think, he's sitting with that guy. That guy probably paid. I haven't paid a dime for your flight school.
Yeah, so I have had a little bit of help from my parents. They helped me pay for ground school, and then they gave me a gift one time. They paid for one of my flights. But other than
one of your flights,
I mean, a lot of people don't know those flights are pretty expensive. I mean, the plane that I'm renting, it's $200 an hour. That includes fuel. And then for the instructor, it's another $90 an hour.
So I'm guessing you don't make $290 an hour. So you got to work a lot of hours to get 1 hour of flying.
Yeah. So during this off season, when we're not hunting, I'm actually helping my grandfather Phil. He has a handyman business, and so I've been helping him 3 days a week, and then helping my parents at the ranch 2 days a week.
Wow.
Trying to make some money for flights.
So at 17, you've worked at a ranch. Miller Ranch, you've worked at a coffee shop, you've worked at a handyman business, you've worked at
Cowboy Inn.
Yep. And you're still up trying to get your pilot's license. You're still going to continue to hunt, and you're still going to cowboy when required.
Yep. Yeah. Right. And then one of my other brothers, he's doing some farming for another farmer that's right next to us that I helped out. He actually bought some fields from a farmer that I helped out earlier. It was about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now, I think, doing harvest with them. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do during the summer, and just keep yourself busy. So. You're
not letting any grass grow under your feet, are you?
Yeah, no.
You know, that's indicative, Wes, of a champion lifestyle.
Thank you.
And so I'm looking at you, and I'm thinking there's a lot of adults who would want to grow up and be Wes. And that's one of the things that makes you a champion. So, folks, as we sit here with Wes and we dial off this show, I want everybody to know that you too can be a champion, and all it takes is a little bit of initiative and a whole lot of elbow grease. And hey, let's all go out there and become a Grampion. This is Jim, and I'm out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.